Welcome to today's Museums from Your Home live stream presented by the University of Alabama Museums. My name is Rebecca Johnson, and I'm the Communications Specialist for UA Museums. And joining me today are Katherine Edge, Director of the Mildred Westervelt Warner Transportation Museum, and James Scott, who is the Museum Education Assistant at the Mildred Westervelt Warner Transportation Museum. And today we're talking all about the Warner Transportation Museum, so it felt right to have the people who work there talk about the museum. So welcome, Katherine and James. It's good to be with you today.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, it's good seeing you.
All right. Yeah, it's wild because during the pandemic, we haven't really seen much of each other aside from being on Zoom calls and live streams. So it's to see you is a little bit different these days. But I guess physically we're still seeing each other eyeballs, but not being in the same room, unfortunately. But it's good to see you all. And I just want to remind everybody, if you're watching with us and you're following along with the live stream, we are broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. So this will be live, so you can ask some questions. If you have any questions about the Warner Transportation Museum, feel free to ask them and just drop them in the comment section if you have them. And just remember, this is live, so anything can happen with our internet connections or anything like that. So hopefully everything will go smoothly, but just remember it is live and that kind of thing does happen sometimes. But now that we've gotten all that business out of the way, Katherine, how should we get started today talking about the Warner Transportation Museum?
Well, we thought we'd just give a nice overview, really, of what the museum does and what our goals are, and of course, that has shifted a little bit with our current state of affairs, but the museum is open for general visitation. We have had to block off certain areas. Our interactive area is blocked off. We have removed the iPads that contained extra pictures and additional information from um, um, all of our exhibit spaces, and we've covered up all of our little scent interactives. So it may feel a little bare boned, but we are still open and we are still here to answer your questions and promote the history of Tuscaloosa. So and again, there are protocols in place. So if you come by the museum, please wear a mask, use hand sanitizer, and maintain your social distance. But we are open, and we encourage everybody to, in reasonable sized groups, to come and see the museum. If you need, if you're looking for a little something to do. Um, so I guess the easiest thing to do, Rebecca, if you want to throw up our presentation, we'll just go through a couple of slides and give some basic history on the museum, and then we can kind of talk about what we're currently doing, our current projects, and just kind of go from there. So again, if you have any questions about anything, please drop them in the comments, and we will address as many as we can. Um, so to start off with, the Transportation Museum is probably one of the um, most unusual out of the units that make up UA Museums, because we are located off campus. We are part of the department, but the property itself is a property of the city of Tuscaloosa. So that means that James and I work regularly with both the city for on-site property management and the university being part of the UA Museums department. So that's something that right off the bat makes us a little bit different from the Natural History Museum, the Gorgas House, and Moundville. But again, we all work together within the same department. But the bureaucracy and some administrative things have to go through may sometimes have to go through a few more channels because of the way we're set up. So that first off makes us a little bit different. Rebecca, can you hit the next one for me? So the museum is located in a historic building. We are in the Queen City Bathhouse. The structure was construction started in 1941. and was completed in 1943. The building opened in 1943, and the pool itself has been closed for quite some time and has been filled in for quite some time. We use it now as available green space, but the building has remained unchanged. The exterior of the building has remained unchanged. The fountain and the children's wading pool that makes up the broader base of the fountain is still there, as well as the bleachers. So the overall integrity of the property is still very much intact. So even though hasn't been a pool for quite some time, you still, when you come visit the property, can get a sense of how it functioned in that original design and that original purpose. Within the museum, the redesign of the interior of the structure still also lends a lot of um, maintains a lot of that integrity. So there are parts of the museum, particularly on the floor, that maintain that original floor plan. So it gives visitors a sense of how, where walls used to stand, and how the building functioned as a bathhouse, compared to how it functions now as a museum. Um, but that's one of the great things about this historic property, is that the structure specifically has only been the bathhouse and the museum. It was vacant for the period of time in between, but that is, those are the only two purposes and functions that this building has had. So it's actually very, very well maintained, and again, maintains a lot of that historic integrity, which makes it very important as a historic property to the Tuscaloosa community, and specifically to the downtown area. Um, and what does the transportation museum do? We get that question a lot. Some people may think that it is all about cars and things like that, and they're not entirely wrong, because we do have a very, very nice car on display. It's our largest exhibit, but um, in a purely foundational sense, the museum is the local history museum that tells the story of Tuscaloosa through the lens of transportation. So all the history that we talk about, the exhibits that we bring in, the exhibits we design, are going to have a component of transportation or Tuscaloosa history that makes it part of that makes it relevant to the mission of the museum. And I already explained how the building is the property of the city of Tuscaloosa, but operated by UA Museums. So, Rebecca, can you hit the next slide for me? So this is a basic layout of our structure. As you can see, it's circular. Don Buell Schuler was very progressive in his architectural designs. He also, his chosen medium as far as building materials was concrete. So we are in a predominantly concrete building, and as you can see, all the curvature it's a boon to the structure, but it also presents certain obstacles. It makes the structure interesting, but as James and I can personally and professionally attest, it is not fun hanging flat things on curved walls. And you can see right in the middle, this slightly pink highlighted area, that is our temp exhibit space, and we deal with both concave and convex curved walls in our exhibition space. So there's hardly ever an exhibition that doesn't present some sort of challenge. James, you want to say anything about some of the things we've dealt with, just in the physicality of putting up an exhibition in this space?
I mean, a lot of it has been figuring out creative ways to get around this type of obstacle, um, all of which work, but I don't think are the final solution to getting an exhibit on the walls. Um, a lot of it's resizing things and making sure that they fit, um, so that they don't fall off the wall, which they sometimes regularly do fall off the wall because of just the I guess the pressure of putting a flat thing on a curved wall just doesn't really fit.
Right. We have had one or two instances during there was one particular exhibit. There was a very large um uh wall hanging that went up that we had to implement a we had to get creative with fishing line and things like that, and
Mm.
it worked fairly well, but the one or two times that particular piece fell off the wall, it was not it wasn't anything that was damaged or broken beyond repair. It was not a framed piece or anything like that. It was a piece of foam board, but it still was a very specific challenge that we had to overcome. So. But like I said, the middle of the museum, that central circle is our temp exhibit space, and then around the perimeter on either side of the circle is all of our well, actually around the entire structure is all makes up our permanent exhibits. So these are the exhibits that are up that make up the the bones of the museum. And I didn't really realize it until looking at this angle of the floor plan how much the layout of the building looks like the Starship Enterprise.
Yeah. It does a little bit.
But yeah, but that's what it reminds me of. But anyway, you can tell I've spent a little bit too long in my house over the past couple of months. Rebecca, if you want to hit the next slide. So whenever we're planning exhibits and projects and all for the museum, this is more or less our exhibition plan. So we try to incorporate as many of these aspects as possible. So as the local history museum, we if there's any exhibit that either we design or we can share from another institution, the Natural History Museum, Moundville, Gorgas, or our the people that we check in with first as our immediate colleagues. But if there's any exhibit again that we can either design or borrow from another institution that is focused on local history, we are always eager to have that exhibit in the museum and share it here and provide an extra opportunity for the community to come and enjoy it. So local history is, absolutely one of the subjects and themes that we place some focus on. Um, as the Transportation Museum, and in looking through the history of Tuscaloosa through that particular lens, if there are specific transportation related exhibits that we can host, we really make it a point to showcase those as well. A couple of years ago, we did one that was all about railroads and trains and whatnot. No, we didn't bring any railroad locomotives, anything like that to the museum, but the exhibit itself was a two-dimensional wall hanging exhibit that was all focused on trains and the railroads. So that fit perfectly into our transportation category. And then sometimes, and these are kind of what I call unicorn exhibits, there are times that both history and transportation are the central themes of one singular exhibit. And of course, if we're fortunate enough to either design one or find one that already exists that blends an aspect of history that we can relate to Tuscaloosa or to the state of Alabama with transportation, then quite frankly, we feel like we've hit the lottery when that happens. Mainly because, again, as the local history museum, there needs to be we feel like there needs to be something that ties our exhibit specifically to our immediate area, our region, and at least within state boundaries. So more or less, that's kind of this is the plan that we try to implement when we're designing our exhibit schedule and investigating what may be out there in that other institutions have that we could possibly and hopefully borrow. Rebecca, if you want to hit the next one for me, please. All right, so again, how did that if you remember from a second ago, our floor plan has the central area of the museum is dedicated as our temp exhibit space, and so we try to think creatively, and again, the space kind of dictates how creative or the need for creativity that we sometimes have to implement, but we use that space to bring exhibits, projects into the space, and kind of sort of change up what the overall, more or less the overall purpose of the museum is. Because again, our permanent exhibits are permanent. We have the ability to change them out, but they are what provide the foundation to what the Transportation Museum is about. So if there's, again, right now, we don't have an exhibit up in our temp space, but you can still come in and learn a lot about the history of Tuscaloosa because of our permanent exhibits. And so what the things that we put in our temp exhibit space are really kind of like bonus aspects, if you will, and those are the kinds of things that we like to showcase. So we design our own exhibits in house. We don't do it every single time, but here over the past year or two, we've been very involved in in-house curated and designed exhibits. So with the bicentennial, we had a two-part series that was focused entirely on the bicentennial and highlighted. The first installment was early Tuscaloosa history and was titled Tuscaloosa in the Capital Period. And the second installment that we closed at the beginning of February before everything started getting crazy. Not only was it the end of the bicentennial year, but it was time to close out that series with the bicentennial having just ended. And that second and final installment was on the Civil War and Reconstruction, and all of it was based on history from excavations that took place in downtown Tuscaloosa on the block where Embassy Suites Hotel currently sits. So that was a project that we designed. We worked with the Office of Archaeological Research. We worked with Research and Collections, and worked with the Gorgas House Museum to get that entire series put together and on display. Um, James, you want to say anything about the bicentennial series
I was gonna say
specifically?
the director of the Gorgas House was actually the one that helped excavate
Mhm.
that area of the city block, which is really kind of cool. He wasn't the director of the Gorgas House at that point, but he was working for OAR, but he was immediately, I guess, uh,
Involved.
involved. Yeah, I was gonna say responsible. I was like, that doesn't sound right.
Yes, unfortunately, Brandon is normally with us today, but he couldn't be with us today, but he's definitely with us in spirit. Yes, you're absolutely right. At the time, Brandon was working with the Office of Archaeological Research, and he was the archaeologist in charge of that particular excavation. So, um, by the time we developed this exhibit, he had changed positions and was director of the transfer of the Gorgas House. Excuse me, is the current director of the Gorgas House, and so it was very easy to work with him, not only from the historical capacity of the his new position with the Gorgas House, but his previous position with OAR. And so we were able to get a lot of inside information thanks to Brandon's involvement with that project. We also try to work with as many fellow institutions as we possibly can in order to have exhibits on loan. This expands our network within the museum world, but it also provides so much opportunity to share exhibits with the community that otherwise may not have the chance to be seen. And so one example of that, one of the first exhibits that we had when I started was. Traveling exhibit available through the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, which is located in Birmingham, Alabama, very, very close to us. And it was remembering four little girls. It's a fantastic art and history installment that is focused on the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. And we were very excited and honored to be able to have that exhibit and share that with the Tuscaloosa community. Um, we also probably one of our more larger exhibitions that we loaned from another institution was Requiem for Steam, the railroad photographs of David Plowden. Um, I mentioned that earlier. This is that exhibit that was all focused on railroad and trains, and they were all photographs, and they were all taken by the same photographer, David Plowden. And so to have that kind of continual viewpoint, all within the same on the same subject was really really fantastic. And that exhibit, we loaned that from the Center for Railroad Photography and Art, which is located in Madison, Wisconsin. So again, if we hadn't been able to bring that exhibit down to here to Tuscaloosa, um, those photographs may never have been seen by by individuals here in the community. So that's kind of what we try to do in terms of exhibits that we bring in from other institutions. We think holistically and think, how can we relate these exhibits, create these opportunities, but still make it relevant to the underlying mission of the museum. So, and then of course, we also host exhibits that are designed by our colleagues in the UA Museum's family. So, if there's an exhibit that Brandon does at the Gorgas House that we can host down here at the Transportation Museum, we are always happy. We are always happy and willing to do it. Again, it makes that information available to the wider community. Sometimes it's very difficult to get to Central Campus. I'm of course speaking under normal circumstances. It can be difficult to get to Central Campus. It can sometimes be difficult to get down to Moundville if they're doing anything special. And because we're so centrally located, we kind of view ourselves as the bridge between the central locations that are right in the middle of campus that may be difficult to get to, or are a bit far out, such as Moundville. We kind of view ourselves as the bridge between the boundary restrictions of the university and the broader community itself. So we try to share as much as we can in a space that is easier, or we hope is easier for the community to reach. One thing that we do not have issues with is parking. So anytime there anytime we have an exhibit that has come from the Gorgas House or Natural History Museum, if you didn't have a chance to see it at its original location, never fret. There's a very good possibility we will have it down here at the Transportation Museum, and we have 72 parking spaces that are just waiting for your car to take up one of them and come in and enjoy the museum. So that's one of the other reasons that we make it a point to host exhibits that the other units within the department have had at their own locations. We like to make that more readily available to the broader community, and we don't have the restrictions that can make getting to Central Campus sometimes difficult. Rebecca, you want to hit the next one for me? So these are just some pictures of the installation of the Remembering Four Little Girls exhibit. It was up in 2016, so that's been going on 4 years now, which seems like just yesterday, but that exhibit was up 4 years ago, and again, that was on loan to us from the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. You'll notice we had the museum looked a little different anyway. The temp space had a bright blue wall at that time, and the tops of the benches are that kind of I call it kind of a burnt orange color. We have since changed those colors. The blue wall is not there anymore. We now have a lovely slate gray, which has worked beautifully with everything that we have put on the wall. And we got rid of that kind of orangish red bench top and made it more of a subtle beige in order to be available for visitors to use to take a break and rest, enjoy the open temporary space, but maybe not be as obvious to as you're if you're not sitting and enjoying the exhibit in that space. So we've done a little bit of facelift work to the interior part of the museum. Rebecca, next one, please. All right, so this was Requiem for Steam, and this is a video embedded in the slide. Rebecca, I'm not sure if it will. I'm not. It may not let it. Oh, there it goes. You mind hitting that real quick? Um, this was the Requiem for Steam exhibit. This was our main wall, and to have this continual line of framed photographs that were all, again, these beautiful black and white photographs on our newly gray wall. It was really, really, really stunning. Um, from a behind the scenes kind of note, James, I don't know if you remember installing this exhibit. It's kind of a hard one to forget, but it looked stunning when it was up, but by the time it was a little bit difficult installing this particular exhibit because all of the photographs that you see in the video were all custom framed, and because they were all custom framed, there was a lot of math involved that day in order to hang them correctly spaced on the wall and also all in line. And so that entire day, we were working with measurements within, I think, what was it, an eighth of an inch? It
That
was
sounds
something
about right.
very
Yeah.
small. It was very, very small, and we were all just mentally spent by the end of the day getting getting this exhibit up. We were very proud of it once it was up, but the level of calculation and just math and measuring and everything that went into it, because there were, I think, 14 to 17 images on that main wall, and that was
Mm,
only a portion of our entire exhibit space. So, um, again, it looks so stunning on the wall. We were very, very proud of it, and it absolutely looked fantastic. And I loved when this exhibit was in the museum because I think it just looked so wonderful. But I was so happy to have that exhibit hung at the end of the day, as I I I make it I make it no secret. I history. I do not math. So even working in an eighth of an inch, it was exhausting. But it was a wonderful exhibit. And we were very pleased to have it up. So we may have to get in touch with the Center for Railroad Photography and Art and see if they have something else that we can bring down that um, is just as interesting, but maybe a little easier to install.
right. Yeah. I say a lot of people come in asking for trains specifically.
Yes, yes,
So
we do.
anything we can do with trains, usually the public is like, yes, trains. We love trains.
Yes. Yes, we will definitely be in touch with the CRPA to see if we can accommodate that in the future. I'd be very happy and willing to work with them again. They were wonderful. All right, Rebecca, next one, please. All right, so then we had 2017 was the correct me if I'm wrong, James. It wasn't 2017 the anniversary, centennial anniversary of World War One,
I
or
think
was that
so.
2018?
Or it was maybe not the beginning, but the ending of it.
Okay. Well, the Gorgas House focused a lot on
Or
they did a lot of the student staffers they had at the time were very interested in history, particularly military history, and they developed an exhibit called Lafayette, We Are Here. America Enters the First World War, and focused a lot, built an entire exhibit around America entering the First World War, and then how exactly the state of Alabama was involved with that, and even down to how the university was involved with those efforts. And we were incredibly excited to host that exhibit. It was student designed. It was put together by students working at the Gorgas House, and they did a fantastic job. And we were so excited to be able to share that with the broader community, and further showcase their work because they did a fantastic job. Rebecca, hit the next one for me. And so these are just again some images. We had these are some posters that was part of that exhibit that were examples of the types propaganda and notifications that would have been easily and readily seen during this time. And the picture to the right is actually a school group that is our wonderful volunteer, Mr. Tom Calson. We miss Tom so much. He is a fantastic. He's a fantastic volunteer. He's a fantastic tour leader, and we miss him because we haven't been able to have tours, so we haven't needed to call on Tom in order to come down and help us. We're hoping that can change in the near future. But this particular group was a group from Quarry Middle School. Their entire middle school came to see this exhibit. So we had sixth, seventh, and eighth graders from Quarry, and gosh, I suppose these kids are in high school now. For That was in 2017. So yeah, they're either about to be in high school or in high school. And it was absolutely fantastic having all of those students come through and be a part of that exhibit. And it was fun. It was fun thinking of ways to talk about that particular aspect of history and make it fun and engaging for them. So Becca, next one, please. So the next big project we had was we were involved with the 125 years of women. That was the 125th anniversary of the welcoming of female students to the University of Alabama. Again, that happened in 2018, and we worked with the Gorgas House to develop an exhibit that was a part of this campus-wide celebration. And the Gorgas House started the project, and then we ended up having to finish it. The director at the time moved; she moved to another state, and so we made sure that the exhibit was completed. But that was a very, very big project for us. Rebecca, you want to hit the next slide for me? And took a lot of planning. There was a lot involved with the Gorgas House. Again, that's not our regular digs. So working in that space was challenging for. Well, I say it was challenging for us simply because again, it's not the space that we spend the most time in. But this is just kind of some pictures of the type of layout that we were working on with the College of Human Environmental Sciences. That was a project that we partnered with them on to complete. And this is more or less just, painter's tape and paper laid out on the floor as we tried to figure out how the exhibit needed to be laid out in this particular space. So there was a lot of creative thinking that went into that exhibit as well. Again, it's not our normal layout, not our normal floor plan. And but I think it turned out absolutely fantastic. It was a great exhibit for the Gorgas House. We were pleased to be involved, and it was great working with CHES. The talent within that college is absolutely stellar. Rebecca, you want to hit the next one for me? And so again, this is just just kind of some detail that we went into in order to lay out this exhibition. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the hexagons that you see. I wanted to make sure I said the right shape. The hexagons that you see are actually um, um, James, help me out here. What
They were
they're
they were placeholders for the stands of the mannequins that we
stands.
were going to use.
Thank you. That's the word, stands. Yes. So where all of these hexagons are, there were going to be mannequins wearing an outfit from a particular decade or a particular time period that
Or from a particular person.
or from a particular person. That is correct. That was going to be the three-dimensional part of this exhibit. And where you see all the little pink lines, that was more or less where we had initially planned to put our on the wall text panels that provided the information, the background, the who, what, when, where, why, and provide that context. So And so, and the gray areas that you see kind of around some of those hexagons are borders or screens that were put up in order to further delineate the space. And we were very fortunate right at the door. I don't know how easy it is for anyone to see, but that first that first hexagon um, at the at the entrance of that room at the Gorgas House actually featured a red suit that was worn by um, Dr. Judy Bonner while she was president of the university, and as the first female president. There was no way that we couldn't include her, and she was very, very generous in letting us uh, borrow her outfit for that particular project.
I mean, in fact,
Um,
it was her, I guess, um, what's the word? Not like this was this suit that she wore that really showed who
mhm.
she was. It
Oh
it
yes,
really coined who she was as when she was the president of the university.
yes, it was. Yes, it very much was her suit, and it was her suit as president. And in fact, the right behind that, I remember on the wall she also loaned us a picture, and it was the picture of when one of the national championship football teams, whenever they went to the White House to receive their um, uh, accommodation from the White House. She was present during that time, and she wore that suit to the White House for that event. So having the suit physically there, on a mannequin in all of its bold red UA glory, and then having the picture right behind it that
Hmm.
that recorded a very specific moment that she wore that suit was it was really great to be able to have those two things together, and it also provided a bit of context for the suit itself. So it wasn't just, oh, this is a red suit. It was, no, this is the red suit that Judy Bonner wore to the White House with Coach Nick Saban, the football team, and at the time President Barack Obama. So there's, it really, really gave, I think, a lot of gravitas to that particular artifact. And we're still very grateful to Dr. Bonner for her generosity in letting us borrow that and showcase it as part of this exhibit, and also in her honor. Rebecca, you want to go to the next one? And again, the level of detail that goes into exhibition planning, I don't think can be understated really in any capacity. There's so much planning that goes in. Um, to not only protect the artifacts, but make sure that the artifacts get their time in the they're highlighted in their best possible way. The information is highlighted in its best possible way, and as visitors move through the space, not only we want to keep the visitors safe, and we want to keep the artifacts safe. So there's a lot that goes into exhibition planning that that may not be readily evident to visitors, but the ease in which visitors then move through that exhibit and enjoy that exhibit and learn from that exhibit means the planning is always worth it. That level of detail makes for a very it just personally, it just makes me so happy if a visitor moves through and learns something from an exhibit that they didn't know before they visited. um and it's because it flowed, it made sense, it was easy to enjoy. um that just means that we did what we were supposed to do. We the hard work was all worth it. So but there is a lot of detail that goes into this, that goes into exhibition planning, particularly when you're dealing with three-dimensional objects. And again, these mannequins were the mannequins were the three-dimensional aspect that we were that's a little unusual for us to deal with, but at the same time was so much fun to learn about, and figure out how to incorporate. It was absolutely great. So, Rebecca, next slide, please. And again, that's just installation aspects. Yeah, Rebecca, can go ahead and go to the next one. And again, more installation. So we collected a variety of objects to showcase that, um, as best as we possibly could, displayed as much of the history of women on campus as we possibly could. As you can imagine, 125 years is quite a long time, and so we tried to cover as much as we possibly could, um, without, you know, I guess, getting too deep into any one particular aspect. But the amount of work that went into this was quite extensive, and any of the topics that we more or less introduced could easily be a full-blown exhibit on its own. So it was, but it was a lot of fun to work to gather all of these objects. We had things from, some of the oldest sororities that have existed on campus, and just artifacts that female students had used at different points in time. And of course, while we were getting the mannequins set up, it wouldn't have been appropriate to have them uncovered until they were in their outfits. So they looked a little ghostly, while we were getting everything installed, but we also wanted to be. We also didn't want to be rude in any way by having a bunch of bare mannequins standing in the Gorgas house. We didn't figure Amelia would care for that too much. But yeah, Rebecca, go to the next slide for me. And again, here just a couple of detail shots. This is the infamous red suit of Dr. Bonner's. You can see we had an iPad set up that had additional information about the textile itself. And so that provided some more detailed shots, specific information about that artifact. And then to the right we had letters and autographed copy of um, To Kill a Mockingbird by from Nell Harper Lee, who was a student at the university in the 1940s. And it was a pleasure to be able to showcase those artifacts as part of that 125th anniversary.
Because it wasn't just the book, but it was the book that she had signed, as well as some like communication letters that she had with, I think, um, was it her publicist or something,
Yes,
or
yes,
a
that's right.
PR person? So like
That's
some of
right.
those letters that are shown there are actually letters written by her to her publicist,
Mhm.
talking about one thing and another.
Yes,
It was
yes,
really it was really cool that we were able to get a hold of that to have it on display for this exhibit.
yes, you're exactly right. That's exactly right. And to see, um, it's one thing to see her writing in a book that is, how the autograph was obtained. I don't immediately remember, but having that letter, and having her, it wasn't just a well wishes kind of thing. It was her thoughts, it was her plans,
Hmm.
it was it was her trying to figure out her schedule, which was
Yeah.
really interesting. But just, yeah, I loved having that letter, and it was such a pleasure to be able to showcase that, and a very special artifact to be able to showcase too. Um, Rebecca, we can probably, and again, this is some of the final product. Um, these are some videos that I took for, so that I could remember what it looked like. But it was also just so stunning to see it all finished. Again, those are the three mannequins that were, right at the entrance of the exhibit. We've got, the main display case in that room of the Gorgas house was jam packed full of of artifacts, from basically every entity and aspect of campus that we could think of, and had the opportunity to showcase an artifact from. Um, Again, I apologize for the quality of the video, um, but it's it I mean, this is again, these are just some examples of how much information, how much detail went into this one, was one exhibit, really. Um, but again, it was a fantastic opportunity, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to be involved. So, and again, they're Nell Harper Lee's, they're her letters and her book and all of that. So, yeah, that was a lot of work. That was how much time did we have to do that in, James? 8 weeks, 9 weeks?
Oh, that sounds about right. Yeah.
It was not a
It
long
was
time.
there was a deadline and it was looming.
Yes. Yes, very much so. But that's just kind of some of the things that we've done in the past, either here at the Transportation Museum or that we've been immediately involved with. Our current project, again, we don't have anything in the temp space physically on the wall at the moment with all of the coronavirus restrictions in place. Again, however, the museum is open for general visitation, so you can come and enjoy the museum. Um, even without the bells and whistles, we still are open and can again share the history of Tuscaloosa. But our current project, we are involved with Bama Bugfest on the web, and just because we are not having a physical event this year, or again a physical exhibit this year, we are absolutely still having Bama Bugfest. And James did a fantastic job putting together our current online exhibition, which is Details Unseen: The Hidden Secrets of Bugs. You can find it on our website. And this was a project that we were, again, so excited to be a part of. There was a class that our colleague was teaching in the spring semester, that was part of the Blunt undergraduate initiative, and these students were looking at all the different ways in which photography could be used. They Oh, excuse me. They worked at the Gorgas House and did some white box photography at the Gorgas House, and then had developed this project specifically for Bama Bugfest in collaboration with us. And basically, what the students did, they selected specimens out of collections, and then used a photography method called stacking, where they took 100 very close, detailed, in focus, detailed images of their specimen, and then through clever editing, was able to bring out and showcase details of these specimens that may not even be visible to the naked eye, or may not be visible without the use of a microscope or any kind of magnifying glass or anything like that. And the work that these students did, I have to really brag on these students. There were 10 of them in the class. I only had the opportunity to spend one day with them. They had the original plan for this class was they were supposed to take the remainder of the semester to take and build their photographs. And right before spring break happened, the last regular day I think any of us experienced on March 13th. I think a new date that will live in infamy. Um, the three separate weeks of work were crammed into one day, one class period, and all 10 students took their 100 images of their specimens and crammed 3 weeks of work into one class period. So the amount of work that the students were had to do really while they still had access to campus was absolutely incredible, and they did a fantastic job. They then had the ability to edit in their own time and had a due date a little bit later in the semester, but they pretty much had this one shot in order to get their photographs, and they all need to be commended for that. It was a fantastic effort by these students, and um, So that's just a little bit of background into why this particular exhibit is very, very, very special. But yeah, Details Unseen, it's absolutely fantastic. It highlights all of the students' work. James, you want to talk a little bit about how you went about? We've talked about how we did physical exhibitions. You want to take a second and talk about how you developed an online exhibition?
I was gonna say, yeah, this one was a little bit different than what we normally do with physical spaces because um, we didn't have any physical space to work with really, or were allowed to. So it was a lot of trying to figure out what type of particular medium would work best, and then also finding I guess the right program to highlight what we wanted to show, which is primarily a photograph exhibit. So I took inspiration from uh, someone else who we used to work on the campus. And Dr. Was it Dr. Hillary Green, right? Who
Yes,
did
yes,
the
Hillary
yeah.
Green.
She put together a walking tour. Um, Blanking on the name.
Oh, the Hallowed Grounds tour.
Hallowed Grounds. Yes, thank you. The Hallowed Grounds tour has a self-guided walking tour in itself that she created through Adobe Spark. And I went ahead and I took a look through the exhibit and I said, this is something that I could maybe use. I don't know if it'll quite work with what we're doing, but I gave it a shot and I put it all together. And this is kind of what the exhibit looks like now. And it highlights each student and kind of what the insect that they chose. It shows the image of their final image for their grade that they were able to complete. Along with like a couple quotes about why they chose it, what made it interesting, and then some information about them specifically to know like where they were in their studies kind of at the time, whether they be like a freshman or a senior or um, and then I guess just to also highlight you know that they weren't all from Alabama, which is
Right.
kind of interesting. So like when they did have to leave the university because of the quarantine, they were potentially working from out of state, which is I mean it not that it's impressive, not that it's not impressive. It's just that with the internet, it makes it a lot easier to be able to do stuff like that and to get a final product submitted before the end of the semester when you're not on campus at the school that you go to when you're in
Right.
another state somewhere else. Um, but yeah, no, I put together the exhibit from their informations and stuff, and I think it turned out pretty well. Um, and I mean, it'll be online. We have it on our website. We have it on our Facebooks, and then we also have it on the Alabama Bug Fest website as well. And I think those are all the places there's that now.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Plenty of opportunities to see it. And it is always fun, at least I feel like it is. It is always fun to do a physical exhibit, and you kind of reach a point where it you get you kind of get bogged down in the details and
mm,
there are days where I don't want to think about whatever the topic or the subject is anymore. But then whenever it's done and it's up on the wall and you get to see, um, you get to see the more or less the fruits of your labor. It's something physical up on the wall. It's such a relief, and it's very exciting at that point. um and it's always a little bit of a downer whenever we have to take the exhibits down, because there's so much work that goes into it. But and some of that may be a little bit different with the online exhibition, but the beauty of the online exhibition is that
I
it
was going to
can
say
always be up.
this one potentially won't have to come down, and it
Exactly.
should still be available as long as we keep it on the Adobe Spark available for people to see, which I don't see any
Absolutely.
reason why we shouldn't. So
Right.
um, I think we have a comment or a comment question.
Our good friend Stephen Polensky, he says Betty Slow at Tuscaloosa News sometimes posts historical tidbits. Have y'all ever collaborated? The museum specifically has not collaborated, Stephen, but I am a member of the Tuscaloosa Area Virtual Museum and or TAVM, and I know Betty Slow through that particular committee, and so I personally and professionally am involved in TAVM, but as yet there has not been an immediate collaboration project between the museum and that particular committee. But again, we share and are involved with TAVM online, and we also partner regularly with the Tuscaloosa Public Library, who are our immediate neighbors, and also within whom TAVM is based and hosted. So we again, not a specific collaboration, but we are definitely in communication on a very regular basis and work together a lot.
I think it's interesting that he brought that up, because I remember that a bunch of people came in well before, I guess it was last fall, asking about photographs and information about the falls of Tuscaloosa. And I asked them, I was like, where did you get this information? And they said they read it in the newspaper. And sure enough, I believe it was probably Betty that had published a little tidbit about like remembering the falls or something like that. And it sparked everyone's curiosity, and they wanted to learn more about it. So they came here looking for photos. Unfortunately, we don't have any photos of the falls, but maybe we should reach out to Betty and see if there's something we can work or collaborate with her about, putting something in the museum or highlighting even stuff that people might maybe generally skip over when they come through the museum itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did a TAVM was actually early um, one of our early broadcasts as part of the Museums from Your Home live, this live stream program that we developed due to the pandemic, and have continued. And there is you can see Ron Harris of the Tuscaloosa Public Library, and Elizabeth Brott is one of the other founding members of TAVM. I believe this particular day, if I'm not mistaken, um, I think I was having issues with my children. I was broadcasting from home, and so that's why I'm maybe not immediately available. But again, there's Brandon. So he ended up being in the yeah, there I am. He ended up being in the show today anyway. So but yes, we
He
we
always makes it in.
absolutely, yes, we have to acknowledge the Gorgas House, and Brandon, we can't not. But yeah, the Tuscaloosa Area Virtual Museum is a fantastic resource, and there's a wealth of information there. It's a combination of photographs and newspaper clippings, documents, that kind of thing, and it is truly fantastic. So if you have any questions or are looking for additional information about the history of Tuscaloosa, definitely check out tavm.omega.net, and that will hopefully that'll answer your question, or at least help point you in the right direction, because that is a community collaborative project. There are several organizations that are involved with that and provide the information. So
Yeah, I know
but
when
that was
I
a
look
great
for
question.
particular answers for things that I might not know about readily about Tuscaloosa, I always go straight to to the to that website, and then
Hmm.
I always learn. So I never walk away from that website, um, I guess, disappointed. There's always something to learn, and it's constantly being updated, which is really cool. It's not just static, like, oh, here's a history website. It's
Right.
constantly being added to and improved.
Yes, and that is one of the reasons that that particular museum is a virtual museum, so that it can
Hmm.
continue to grow, it can continue to be updated, edited, um, because again, it is a collaborative project. So there's always, history is not stagnant. There's always more to learn, and there's always new information that is coming out, and being checked and rechecked and quadruple checked. So yeah, it's a great resource.
Well, I have so many questions for y'all, but we don't have any more time. I have so many questions because I know, Catherine, you're a local sort of native Tuscaloosan. It's Tuscaloosan, right? Wait, is that how you
Yeah.
would say it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And James, you're sort of a transplant to Tuscaloosa. You're from up north in the Michigan area.
Yep.
So I have so many questions about the dynamic there of, James, what you think about Tuscaloosa. Like, I have so many questions. We don't have any time, but maybe we can save that for a next go around. But thank you for guiding us through the history of the Warner Transportation Museum and talking about some of your exhibits that were up before I joined UA Museum. So it's nice to actually get to see what y'all did. So that's really cool. So thank you for taking us through that this morning. But I think that's going to do it for this Museum Stream Your Home live stream. We're almost at an hour, so I guess we got to call it. We could talk probably all day, but we got to call it at some point. But we have changed our Museum Stream Your Home live stream schedule a little bit due to some big virtual summer events like y'all were talking about with Bama Buckfest, which is going on right now, and it's on the web, which is a fantastic pun. If you're into puns like me, I really enjoy that. Bama Buckfest on the web is going to be doing its thing until July 25th. But like they said, you can see the Details Unseen virtual exhibit for a while, maybe forever. Who knows? But you can go to the Transportation Museum's website for that and check it out, which I highly recommend that you do. And so a good way to keep up with Bama Bugfest, because there's lots of websites that get passed around, you can just subscribe to the UA Museum's YouTube channel, which is at youtube.com/UA Museums. You can get notifications anytime we go live for the Museum Stream Your Home live streams, as well as the Bama Bugfest on the web live streams. So that's a good way to keep it in touch with us and what we're doing, because you'll get all the content there. You don't have to go fishing around for website links or anything like that. It's just all in one place. So I highly recommend that. If you're also interested in supporting the museums, including the Warner Transportation Museum, you can go to give.ua.edu/museums, and you can become a supporting of UA Museums. So that's a good way to do that. And if you have any questions or want to see some of our past archived live streams, like with the Tuscaloosa Area Virtual Museum, you can go to museums.ua.edu/museums from your home. That'll have all the information about that online initiative that we've been doing the last couple of months, and you'll get a list of all the live streams that we've been doing there. A lot of different topics too. We've got history, we've got natural history, we've got archaeology in there. We've got a lot of Moundville stuff. So if you're interested in all of that history, feel free to go and check that out. All right. Well, I think that is going to do it for us this morning. Thank you to Catherine and James for sharing a little bit about the Mildred Westervelt Warner Transportation Museum with us today. I certainly learned a lot. And thank you to everyone for watching and visiting UA Museums from your home. All right. Well, I hope everybody has a good Wednesday.